The images of Ambassador Chen's execution reach Earth with a 17-minute delay, the time it takes light to travel from the Galactic Council's headquarters to humanity's homeworld. For those 17 minutes, humanity continues in blissful ignorance. A child in Rio celebrates her birthday. Farmers in Kenya check weather forecasts for the coming week. Miners on Luna break for lunch. Then the transmission arrives, and time fractures. The first screens to display the execution are in the United Earth Embassy on Mars, where Chen's staff watches in paralyzed horror. Her aide, Thomas Rivera, vomits as his mentor disintegrates. The execution feed cuts to the council elder's smug declaration, his translucent skin pulsing with what humans would later learn is an expression of supreme satisfaction. The human diplomatic corps is hereby suspended for one standard galactic year. You will appoint a new, more appropriate representative who understands their position in the natural order. Within minutes, the footage saturates every network on Earth and its colonies. News anchors struggle to maintain composure. In New Shanghai, crowds gather spontaneously in Memorial Square, their silent vigil illuminated by thousands of handheld lights. Outside Chen's childhood home in Vancouver, strangers place flowers until they spill across the entire street. President Reyes sits motionless in the Situation Room, surrounded by military commanders awaiting orders. Before becoming president, Alina Reyes had been Chen's professor at Georgetown. Recognizing the young diplomat's talent for interspecies negotiation, she had personally recommended Chen for the ambassador position. Now she watches the recorded execution for the third time, her face hardening with each viewing. They knew, General Williams says, breaking the silence. They knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't just an execution, it was a message. Reyes finally speaks, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. What Sarah discovered must have terrified them. She taps her secure tablet, bringing up Chen's final unauthorized transmission, cut off mid-sentence when she was arrested. The partial message outlines a systematic exploitation network where council members divert resources from developing worlds, condemning billions of sentient beings to generational poverty while a select few profit immensely. They didn't just kill her for discovering this, Admiral Hassan observes. They killed her publicly to make an example. They expect us to cower. Intelligence Director Kwan adds, Council records show they've done this 17 times to other species who stepped out of line. In each case, the species in question apologized, replaced their representatives, and accepted additional restrictions. What happened to those who didn't comply? Reyes asks. Kwan's expression darkens. There are no records of non-compliance, Madam President. Reyes stands, surveying the room of Earth's highest military command. Then we make history today. Activate the Prometheus Protocol. The generals exchange glances. The Prometheus Protocol had been developed as a theoretical last resort, a complete conversion of Earth's economy and governance to war footing. No single nation had ever attempted it, let alone the entire planet. Madam President, General Williams says carefully, the Prometheus Protocol requires unanimous approval from all United Earth nations. We've never had unanimous agreement on anything. President Reyes walks to the window overlooking Washington. Already, crowds are gathering outside the White House gates. Send them Chen's final message and the execution footage. Tag it with one question. Will we stand together or die separately? She turns back to the room, her grief now forged into resolution. And contact our covered assets embedded in alien diplomatic missions. Operation Midnight begins in 6 hours. The Prometheus Protocol alert reaches every world leader simultaneously. For once, petty politics and ancient rivalries fade before a greater purpose. Humanity has finally found something they can all agree on. The galaxy has made a terrible mistake. The alien diplomats realize something is wrong when their neural translators stop functioning. Next, their secure communications go dark. Then their personal defense fields flicker and fail. The Vrokian ambassador to Earth, Kelthran, reaches for his emergency beacon just as human special forces breach his compound. The soldiers wear no national insignia, only a simple black armband with Chen's image. Their equipment represents a hybrid of technologies never seen together. Russian exoskeletons powered by Norwegian supercapacitors. Chinese optical camouflage integrated with Brazilian biofilters. This is a violation of diplomatic protocol. Kelthran protests as they secure his limbs with restraints specifically designed for Freudian physiology. The council will respond with overwhelming force. The team leader says nothing, simply holding up a tablet displaying Chen's execution on loop. The message is clear. Diplomatic protocol died with her. Similar scenes unfold at every alien embassy and consulate worldwide. The precision of the operation stuns even veteran military observers. Former rivals like Pakistani and Indian special forces coordinate their assaults with synchronized timepieces and shared communication frequencies. Korean hackers work alongside Taiwanese system specialists to disable alien security measures. The entire operation lasts just 8 minutes and 17 seconds, the exact duration of Ambassador Chen's trial. Beneath Lake Geneva, the United Earth Emergency Council convenes for the first time since its formation decades earlier. The chamber, designed to survive even nuclear exchange, fills with leaders who days earlier might have refused to share the same room. President Reyes addresses them directly, eschewing the traditional diplomatic niceties. The Prometheus Protocol has 3 phases. She explains, standing before the assembled leadership of humanity. Unification, retaliation, and reconstruction. We are now completing Phase 1 ahead of schedule. On the main display, live feeds show facilities around the world transforming. Automotive factories retool to produce armored vehicles. Shipyards weld structural supports onto civilian vessels. Universities redirect research toward military applications. The Council believes we will respond like all other species they have subjugated. Rice continues. They expect fear, disorganization, and eventual capitulation. They fundamentally misunderstand what they have awoken. Russian President Baranov, historically skeptical of Western leadership, rises unexpectedly. For centuries, humans have perfected the art of killing each other. We have become experts in warfare because we have practiced on ourselves. Now we finally have a worthy opponent. His declaration draws grim nods of agreement. In orbit, the alien observation vessels finally realize something is happening when their systems detect multiple simultaneous launches from Earth's surface. Not missiles, but communication satellites deploying a new encrypted network independent of existing galactic standards. By the time the observers attempt to report this development, their transmissions find only static. Earth has established its first planetary defense screen, blocking all unauthorized communications. The captured alien diplomats find themselves transported to a facility deep within the Antarctic ice shelf. Rather than interrogation, they're subjected to continuous educational programming. Evidence of council corruption, footage of exploited worlds, and the final moments of Ambassador Chen played on endless repeat. They aren't being tortured for information. They're being prepared as witnesses. When the Council's ultimatum arrives through emergency quantum channels, the only communication method still functioning, President Reyes convenes a global public address. Every screen on Earth displays her face as she delivers humanity's response from the newly established Global Defense Headquarters. We choose war. You chose the consequences first. The address ends, and for 7 minutes, the entire planet falls silent in remembrance of Chen. Then the silence breaks with the sound of production lines accelerating, training grounds filling, and launch platforms activating. The Vrokian military analyst observing Earth from the safety of the Council's military outpost at Alpha Centauri reports an unprecedented development. They are not preparing for defense. Every indicator suggests they are preparing for invasion. The Council dismisses this assessment as absurd. Humans lack the technology, the unity, and the will for such action. The Council has misjudged humanity on all 3 counts, and they have only begun to realize their error. The Council Defense Minister, High Commander Zex Kalorn, receives simultaneous distress signals from outposts across 4 sectors. His neural implants struggle to process the contradictory information flooding in. Outpost Gamma 9 reports hull breaches from weapons that somehow bypassed their detection grid. Station Helix reports catastrophic life support failure. The mining facility on Corax IV describes armored humans materializing inside secure areas despite transport scramblers. Impossible, Zex Kalorn mutters, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of extreme agitation. Their ships cannot have reached these positions. Our nearest outpost is 30 light-years from Earth, and their primitive vessels require months to travel such distances. His aide hesitantly interrupts. High Commander, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from multiple Earth vessels previously classified as civilian research ships. It appears they've been modified with, well, our analysts aren't certain what they're seeing. The truth dawns slowly. For decades, human research vessels had visited Council worlds, ostensibly conducting approved scientific missions. The Council had permitted these visits, believing them harmless and a useful way to demonstrate superior alien technology to the primitive humans. Now they realized these missions were reconnaissance, mapping weaknesses, and collecting technical data. Worse, some vessels had remained in deep space, quietly modified with experimental propulsion systems that Council intelligence had dismissed as theoretical. On the contested mining world Corax IV, Squad Leader Amara Jackson leads her team through maintenance tunnels beneath the Council's primary processing facility. Her soldiers move with practiced precision, their armor incorporating technology reverse-engineered from a dozen alien species. The squad plants quantum disruption charges at key structural points, not to destroy the facility, but to disable its defenses. Remember, Jackson whispers through the tactical network, we're here to liberate, not obliterate. Protocol Chen dictates minimal casualties among worker species. Throughout the facility, indentured aliens from 17 different species mine rare minerals under brutal conditions. The human strike teams prioritize disabling the Frokian overseer's neural whips before neutralizing their physical defenses. When the facility's command center finally falls, the workers stare in disbelief at their human liberators. "Why would you risk yourselves for us?" asks a Turellian elder, his exoskeleton bearing the marks of decades of abuse. Jackson removes her helmet, revealing her scared face. "Because your chains could have been ours tomorrow. We fight for Chen, but also for you." Back at Council headquarters, Zex Kalorn watches in mounting horror as reports continue flooding in. 78 outposts have gone dark. 19 strategic facilities report being under human control. Most disturbing are the transmissions from Council warships. Humans are employing tactics that make no strategic sense by galactic military doctrine. They're sacrificing defensible positions to create killing zones, reports the captain of the Council dreadnought Inevitable Dominance. They're deliberately allowing themselves to be surrounded thin. The transmission cuts off abruptly. When it resumes hours later, a human commander sits in the captain's chair, blood splattered across her uniform. This vessel has been claimed in the name of Unified Earth. Its weapons will be repurposed against Council targets. Its crews have been given the option to assist us or be confined as prisoners of war under Geneva Convention standards. Most have chosen to assist us after viewing evidence of Council corruption. End transmission. The Council convenes an emergency session and authorizes deployment of the Vanguard fleet, 50 capital ships that have never known defeat. Their mission: proceed to Sol system and execute Protocol Terminus, the complete sterilization of Earth and all its colonies. As the Vanguard fleet prepares to depart, its commander receives priority intelligence. Human saboteurs have been detected aboard 3 ships. Before security teams can respond, the vessels explode in their docking bays, crippling the fleet's departure capabilities. The Council's military doctrine has no contingency for an enemy that had infiltrated their most secure facilities months or years in advance, patiently waiting for the signal to strike. The Galactic News Network confidently announces the coming end of the human problem. The broadcast cuts off mid-sentence as the station explodes. In its place, Every communication device in Council space displays Ambassador Chen's final words. Earth will not forget this injustice. Dr. Marcus Wong's laboratory beneath Antarctica hums with machinery pushed beyond design tolerances. The room temperature hovers just above freezing, necessary to prevent the experimental graviton pulse accelerators from overheating. 52 of Earth's most brilliant minds work alongside him, their breath visible in the frigid air. They haven't left the facility in 17 days. Wong stares at the holographic simulation displaying the quantum resonance of Council shield technology. The mathematics are elegant, perfect, and therein lies their vulnerability. Perfect systems break catastrophically when pushed beyond specific parameters. Dr. Patel, increase the pulse frequency to match the shield's tertiary harmonic, Wong says, his voice hoarse from fatigue. Dr. Mbeki, recalibrate the field generators to create destructive interference at node points alpha through epsilon. The simulation flickers, then shows a Council shield buckling inward, collapsing like a soap bubble pierced by a needle. The scientists watch in silence, then erupt in exhausted cheers. Wong doesn't join the celebration. He opens a secure channel to Global Defense Headquarters. "We've solved the shield problem," he reports. "But we need delivery systems that can survive long enough to deploy the pulse generators at point-blank range against Council capital ships." President Reyes's hologram nods grimly. "We've lost 37 ships attempting to breach the blockade. How many pulse generators can you manufacture within 72 hours? Wong glances at the prototype, a device the size of a small car, housing technology that didn't exist a week ago. "We can create 20, possibly 25 with additional resources. You'll have whatever you need," Rice promises. "Our soldiers will get them where they need to go." Neither acknowledges the implicit suicide mission this represents. Meanwhile, 7 light-years away, Captain Layla Johnson completes her infiltration of the Council's primary shipyard at Proxima Centauri. Her genetic modifications have transformed her into a convincing approximation of a Tyrellian worker. 4 limbs altered to 6, skin textured to resemble exoskeleton plates, vocal cords surgically modified to produce Tyrellian speech patterns. The pain of the transformation had been excruciating, but Johnson had volunteered immediately when the mission was proposed. She had stood 3 meters from Ambassador Chen during the execution, restrained by Council guards. Chen's final glance toward her had contained no fear, only resolve. Johnson swore then that she would dismantle the Council's power structure piece by piece. The shipyard's central data core requires quantum authentication from a Council administrator. Johnson has spent weeks gaining the trust of Administrator Kex Foran, learning his habits, his preferences, his weaknesses. Tonight, as he inspects the lower engineering decks, she makes her move. "Administrator, the new engine cores show unusual radiation signatures," she reports, leading him to an isolated section. The human attacks have everyone nervous about sabotage. When they're alone, Johnson strikes with practiced efficiency. The sedative injected through her modified fingertip, designed specifically for Vrokian physiology, takes effect in seconds. She harvests his authentication implant, places it against the data core's scanner, and begins the download. The Council's security protocols, command codes, fleet positions, and strategic plans flow into the quantum storage device implanted in Johnson's abdomen. The download completes just as alarms begin sounding throughout the facility. She's been discovered. Johnson reverts to her contingency plan, fighting her way to an emergency escape pod. 3 security officers die before they can raise weapons. 2 more fall as she reaches the launch bay. The pod ejects, its transponder identifying it as debris from a maintenance accident. Council trackers follow the decoy signal she planted, missing the actual pod as it accelerates toward the system's edge, where a stealth human vessel waits. In her secured compartment, Johnson begins transmitting the stolen data through quantum-encrypted channels. Unbreakable security protocols ironically adapted from technology the Council shared during early diplomatic exchanges, never imagining humans could repurpose it so quickly. At Global Defense Headquarters, President Reyes receives word of both breakthroughs simultaneously. Wang's shield-breaking technology and Johnson's strategic intelligence arrive in the same hour. For the first time since Chen's execution, Reyes allows herself a small smile. "Prepare Operation Thunderbolt," she orders. "We're going to break that blockade." The Council's chief propagandist, Information Minister Tralvox, stares in disbelief at reports flooding his neural interface. On 1,000 worlds, public communication networks simultaneously broadcast Ambassador Chen's execution alongside classified documents revealing decades of Council corruption. His carefully constructed narrative of benevolent Council oversight collapses in real time as oppressed populations witness the truth. "How are they bypassing our firewalls?" he demands, tentacles writhing in agitation. "These systems are isolated, secured by quantum encryption." His technical director responds with growing panic. "They're exploiting backdoors we installed years ago to monitor civilian communications. Someone has turned our own surveillance architecture against us." On the mining world Keltra, indentured Praxian workers watch Chen's calm defiance in the face of death. They see the evidence she discovered. Resource allocations proving the Council skims 90% of Keltra's mineral wealth while claiming administrative overhead. 3 centuries of passive acceptance evaporates in hours. Deep beneath the primary processing facility, the first sabotage charges detonate. On the factory planet Dispian, Halicted hive workers observe Council members laughing about mindless drones while discussing how to reduce food allocations further to increase production quotas. The Hive Queen, who had counseled cooperation with the Council for generations, feels the collective rage of her children through their psychic network. Production lines supplying Council military equipment grind to halt as critical components are subtly, systematically damaged. In the Council's emergency session, the Grand Archon's voice trembles with uncharacteristic emotion. 3 of our members were found dead this morning. Their ship's life support systems deactivated while they slept. The chamber erupts in fearful chatter. Council members have died of natural causes or political assassination, but never at the hands of a lesser species, never as part of systematic elimination. Their security details reported no intruders, continues the Archon. The ship's logs showed no unauthorized access, yet somehow humans penetrated our most secure vessels. Security Minister Vrel interrupts. We found this embedded in each victim's personal quarters. He projects an image of a simple metal object, a human combat knife with the Earth Defense Force insignia. And this message repeated on their communication systems. The audio plays, a human voice stating only, "Justice for Chen." The Grand Archon orders unprecedented security measures, personal shields, genetic authentication for all access points, continuous neural monitoring of all personnel. That night, he retires to his quarters inside the Council's most heavily defended sanctuary. 15 layers of security protect him, including technology believed unknown to humans. He prepares for sleep, then freezes at the sight of a human combat knife embedded in the wall beside his sleeping platform. Impossible. No human could have penetrated this far. His security detail finds nothing. No intruder, no evidence of entry or exit. Only the knife remains, a message requiring no words. Meanwhile, Captain Johnson's intelligence coup bears additional fruit. Human hackers access the private communications of Council members, revealing centuries of contempt for lesser species. The Marini people watch Council members mock their religious beliefs. The Taxarians learn their genetic inferiority has been used to justify economic exploitation. The Juxar discover that Council medical aid during their recent plague had been deliberately delayed to thin their numbers. Dr. Eliza Kent, Earth's foremost xenopsychologist, briefs President Reyes on the impact of these revelations. The Council's authority has always rested on a foundation of presumed moral and technological superiority. We've shattered both illusions simultaneously. Their subject species now see the truth. The Council isn't a benevolent governing body, but a parasitic aristocracy. Ray studies the real-time intelligence showing unrest spreading across Council space. And our knife campaign. Kent smiles thinly. Psychologically devastating. Council species evolved as apex predators. They've never experienced being hunted. The knowledge that humans can reach them anywhere, anytime. She leaves the thought unfinished. Prepare the next phase. Raya's orders. It's time to make formal contact with the resistance movements forming on Council worlds. The Maiden Ambassador's announcement stuns the galactic community. Standing before the emergency council session, her crystalline form radiating purple-blue light, a sign of absolute certainty in Maiden physiology, she formally withdraws her species from the Council alliance. We have calculated all possible outcomes, she states, her translator conveying the mathematical precision of Maiden thought. The probability of human defeat approaches zero regardless of resources deployed against them. The Council faces mathematical certainty of collapse within 3.7 standard galactic years if this conflict continues. The Maiden consensus has chosen survival through alliance with Earth. Chaos erupts in the chamber. The Maiden, with their computational neural structures, have served as the Council's strategic analysts for millennia. Their predictions have never been wrong. Within hours, the Tyrellian hives announced their withdrawal as well, followed by the Juxar Confederation. Species that had remained loyal through centuries of exploitation suddenly calculate that humans offer a better chance of survival than the increasingly desperate Council. Admiral Zelnak, commander of the Council's Third Fleet, receives orders to deploy planet cracker weapons against the human colony on Proxima Centauri IV. The colony houses nearly 3 million civilians and no significant military assets. The message is clear: submit or face extinction. We must show these primitive mammals the consequences of defiance, the Council's military director declares. Their emotional nature will force capitulation when they witness the destruction of their offspring. The fleet arrives at Proxima Centauri, weapons charge, only to find the colony completely evacuated. Instead, they discover a single human communication buoy broadcasting on all frequencies. We knew you were coming. We know what you'll do next. We are always 3 steps ahead. The Council's Intelligence Directorate cannot explain how humans anticipated the classified attack. What they don't know is that Captain Johnson's data theft included the Council's strategic contingency protocols, including plans for retaliatory strikes against human settlements. The Council's desperation grows as more defections follow. The Halictid hive workers, the Praxians, and even the Vrel, longtime Council enforcers, announce their withdrawal. Each defecting species brings crucial intelligence, technology, and resources to humanity's alliance. Most devastating is the defection of Admiral Kresh, the Council's most decorated military commander. For 3 centuries, Kresh had led Council forces to victory against all opposition. Now, his flagship approaches Earth under a flag of truce. The reasons for his defection become clear when his neural implants are examined by human medical technicians. Hidden programming had allowed the Council to monitor and influence his decisions, ensuring his loyalty. Similar implants are discovered in all high-ranking Council military officers who defect. They turned us into puppets, Kresh explains to President Reyes during their historic meeting in Geneva. Your hackers' attack on our command networks accidentally disabled the control protocols. For the first time in centuries, I can think freely. His massive form, the vault for a high-gravity world, trembles with emotion. My species, the Doraxian, were once proud warriors. The Council reduced us to instruments. Within days, a human computer virus specifically designed to target neural control implants spreads through Council networks. Admiral Kresh's flagship wasn't just carrying a defector, it was delivering the virus directly into the Council's military communication hub. Throughout Council space, military officers suddenly find themselves free of external control, their implants deactivated. The Council's premier addresses his increasingly fractured government from a secure bunker, his once confident demeanor replaced by visible panic. These humans do not fight merely to win. They fight to change the very nature of our society. They are not conquering, they are liberating. His aide interrupts with fresh news. 3 more council worlds have declared independence and requested Earth's protection. Meanwhile, human diplomatic teams meet with representatives from 17 formerly subjugated species aboard the repurposed Council vessel Truth and Reconciliation. Their mission: draft the founding document for a new galactic alliance based on principles of self-determination, mutual defense, and shared prosperity. Ambassador Chen's image watches over the proceedings from a holographic memorial at the center of the chamber. The Council, despite controlling vastly superior military technology, finds itself fighting an enemy that consistently prioritizes freeing oppressed populations over destroying military targets. Each liberated world becomes not just an ally, but a source of new strength, new perspectives, and new determination to end Council rule forever. The stellar extinguisher moves into position at the edge of the Sol system, its massive superstructure dwarfing even the Council's largest battleships. Designed to collapse stars into hypernovas, it represents the Council's ultimate weapon, never before deployed due to its horrific destructive potential. 300,000 sentient beings died creating it, their life energy harvested to power its reality-warping core. The Council's remaining leadership watches from their secure bunker on Capital World. "Begin the firing sequence," orders the Grand Archon, his voice hollow. "If we cannot rule these humans, no one shall." Warning signals flood Earth's defense network as the weapon begins to power up. President Reyes receives the intelligence in the war room, her face grim but resolute. "Time to full charge," she asks. 97 minutes until it reaches critical firing threshold. Admiral Hassan reports. Once it begins the stellar collapse, nothing can stop the chain reaction. Reyes nods, then opens a secure channel. Launch Operation Chen's Justice. All forces commit. Across the galaxy, humanity's unified fleet, now bolstered by ships from 17 former Council species, emerges from hiding. The massive force had been gathering in secret for weeks, using stealth technology and hidden staging areas identified in Captain Johnson's intelligence coup. The main fleet engages the Council's remaining armada in the Antares system, drawing attention and resources away from both Earth and the Council's capital world. The battle erupts with unprecedented fury. Energy weapons tear through space. Gravity bombs create localized singularities that devour everything in their radius, and boarding parties engage in brutal close-quarters combat. But this tremendous clash serves a greater purpose: misdirection. For while the Council focuses on the largest space battle in galactic history, a small, elite team makes its approach to the heart of Council power. Captain Layla Johnson leads 12 operatives aboard the Silent Vengeance, a stealth vessel incorporating technology from 6 different species. Her team includes specialists from each of the major liberated worlds: a Torellian hacker, a Halictid demolitions expert, a Maiden tactical analyst, a Praxian shapeshifter, a Vrel security specialist, and a Doraxian heavy weapons expert. Our window is narrow. Johnson briefs her team as they approach Capital World's security perimeter. Council leadership believes they're safe behind 30 layers of defenses designed to detect conventional approaches. The Maiden tactician interrupts, her crystalline form pulsing with calculations. Probability of conventional infiltration success: 0.3%. Probability of success via quantum entanglement transfer: 76.43%. Johnson nods and activates the device Dr. Wang's team developed specifically for this mission. A quantum teleportation system that briefly connects 2 points in spacetime, allowing matter transfer without crossing the intervening space. The technology, considered theoretical even by Council scientists, had been perfected by human researchers working alongside defecting alien specialists. As the stellar extinguisher begins its final firing sequence targeting Earth's sun, the quantum teleporter activates. Johnson's team materializes directly inside the Council's innermost sanctum, bypassing all external defenses. The Council leaders stare in disbelief as armed operatives appear in a chamber where teleportation should be physically impossible. How? Begins the Grand Archon, before the Tyrellian hacker disables his neural defenses with a targeted electromagnetic pulse. Meanwhile, the stellar extinguisher reaches 89% power, minutes away from unleashing destruction. Its operators, focused on the firing sequence, fail to notice the ships emerging from slip space directly behind them. The vessels bear markings from species that had previously remained neutral in the conflict: the isolationist Kin Collective, the mercantile Boros Federation, and the enigmatic Tau Ascendancy. Their captains had finally chosen sides after witnessing both the Council's willingness to commit stellar genocide and humanity's efforts to build a more equitable galactic order. Their combined firepower targets the extinguisher's unshielded rear power couplings, its one vulnerability, identified through intelligence provided by defecting Council engineers. The superweapons control station disintegrates under concentrated fire just as its power level reaches 93%. The weapon's partially charged core destabilizes, imploding with a silent flash that momentarily outshines the nearest star. In the Council chamber, Captain Johnson advances toward the cowering leaders, her weapon raised. The galaxy watches through the chamber's broadcast system, expecting, perhaps even hoping for, execution. Captain Johnson lowers her weapon slowly, the action broadcasting across millions of worlds. The Council members cower, expecting the retribution humans have supposedly sought since Chen's execution. Instead, Johnson speaks with quiet intensity. Sarah Chen believed in justice, not vengeance. You will stand trial under a new galactic constitution, judged by representatives of every species you've wronged. The trial begins 3 weeks later in a repurposed Council Assembly Hall. The proceedings last for months, meticulously documenting centuries of corruption and abuse. Former enforcers testify about atrocities committed in the name of order. Resource allocation records reveal systematic exploitation of developing worlds. Neural control protocols expose how the Council manipulated even their own military leaders. Throughout the galaxy, billions watch as the truth emerges. On Earth, memorial services for those lost in the conflict occur alongside celebrations of victory. President Rice addresses a global audience from the steps of the rebuilt United Nations headquarters. We didn't fight merely to defeat the Council, but to build something better in its place. Ambassador Chen gave her life exposing their corruption. We honor her memory not through revenge, but through justice, not through domination, but through partnership. On the newly designated neutral world of Harmonium, representatives from 78 species gather to draft the Galactic Constitution. Human diplomatic principles, concepts like checks and balances, separation of powers, and inalienable rights, form the foundation of discussion. The Maiden contribute mathematical precision to prevent future exploitation. The Tyrellians add communal responsibility clauses. The Praxians insist on environmental protections. Each species brings their unique perspective to the document. Dr. Wong, still grieving his daughter but finding purpose in rebuilding, leads the committee developing technological exchange protocols to prevent any single species from monopolizing advanced science. Admiral Kresh, free of neural control, helps establish a balanced defense force with distributed command structures to prevent future militaristic dominance. The former Council members serve their sentences not in isolation but in service. Their punishment includes rebuilding worlds they exploited, working alongside those they once considered lesser beings. Many find unexpected redemption in this work, their perspectives transformed through direct experience of the suffering they caused. In the Grand Chamber of the new Galactic Assembly, a holographic statue of Sarah Chen stands as a permanent reminder. The simple plaque beneath it becomes the most quoted text in galactic history. She died standing. An entire species rose in her name. Through her sacrifice, a better galaxy was born. Visitors from across the galaxy make pilgrimages to see the memorial. Young Vrokians learn about Chen in school alongside human children studying their own history. The knife that once symbolized human vengeance becomes reforged into a ceremonial pen used to sign new treaties and agreements. Captain Johnson, offered numerous leadership positions, instead chooses to lead peacekeeping missions to former conflict zones. When asked why, she simply responds, Chen would have wanted to ensure the peace lasts, not just celebrate its beginning. 5 years after the Council's fall, humanity hosts the first galactic cultural exchange on Earth. Representatives from over 300 species gather to share art, music, science, and philosophy. The event opens with a moment of silence for all victims of the conflict, followed by a speech from Thomas Rivera, Chen's former aide, who now serves as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Assembly. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, and instead found oppressors. In overthrowing them, we discovered something more valuable than either. We found partners. This gathering represents not the end of a journey, but its true beginning. As night falls over the gathering, the assembled beings observe a human tradition, launching paper lanterns into the sky, each carrying the wish for the future. The lights rise into Earth's atmosphere, visible from orbit as a constellation of hope spreading outward, much like humanity itself has spread among the stars, not as conquerors, but as architects of a more just cosmic order.